Sometimes a movie that seems to have a very bright future ahead will somehow be passed over, go unnoticed, or for unknown reasons may have fallen through the cracks, even despite the accolades, awards, festival prizes, and critical praise. We appreciate your interest in unique perspective. If you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button and join our channel. On the Silver Globe, which was directed by Andrzej Żuławski and released in 1977 but is rarely seen, is frequently mentioned as an example of one of the best science fiction movies that could have been, or rather, should have been. On the Silver Globe, which was all set to mark a critical turning point, was all set to oscillate somewhere between Andrei Tarkovsky's cerebral sci-fi and Alejandro Jodorowsky's intricate surrealist iconography. This was going to be the case not just for Andrzej Żuławski and Polish movie-making, but for international cinema in general. This was a production of unprecedented proportions for Polish cinema, shot in a variety of locations. One member of the cast recalls moving 3 kilometers underground in the Wieliczka salt mine for over 12 hours, and including intricate, heavy costumes that were extremely difficult to get into because of their complexity of design. Not because of Andrzej Żuławski influence, but because of the newly appointed Deputy Minister of Culture, Janusz Wilhelmi, production was halted 2 weeks before the shooting was scheduled to end, and the movie would remain unfinished for an entire decade. The movie was shelved under the justification that it was an economically overambitious criticism of the communist regime. This justification was the reason why the movie was not released. The production began in 1976, but it was halted in 1978 due to censorship by the Polish government, and a significant portion of the movie was lost in the process. It was not until the fall of communism in 1986 that production was restarted. The director, who had been living in self-imposed exile in France at the time, returned to his homeland and finished the movie using the footage that had been salvaged and stashed away by the movie crew. He also added a voiceover for the episodes that were missing and cast replacement actors to dub the parts of the original actors who were no longer available. Despite the fact that it was in a severely edited state when it was released in 1988, the scenes, sets, and costumes had all been restored. A small group of space travelers, among them a woman, depart Earth in search of freedom and the opportunity to found a new society. They are unaware that they are already at the end of their own dreams. They pass away one at a time, and when they do, their descendants go back to the primitive native culture and invent new gods and myths. Later, a space bureaucrat discovers the colonists' offspring being held captive by flying creatures known as churns. In society, different classes have been established, and everyone is anticipating the arrival of the savior. However, things are not turning out as they had anticipated, and strange events are in the future. The Silver Globe can be seen as Żuławski's rejection of the cinema of moral concern at the time. Directors of cinema of moral concern, according to Żuławski, were making the same mistakes as directors of socialist realism. In a sense, the directors of cinema of moral concern are similar to the astronauts from On the Silver Globe that tried to make a better world for themselves only to end up repeating the same mistakes from the past. On the Silver Globe, on the other hand, can be read as a criticism of the communist regime. After World War II, there was a political movement that tried to make the world a better place for workers. Instead, it was filled with ignorance and violence. Żuławski has stated that On the Silver Globe is simultaneously a movie in itself and a history of that movie. It is the story of a specific life and country.
When does the plot start to...
God, I can't believe it.
I'll turn it off.
No, it's okay. I can take it.
David Cronenberg has one of the most distinctive tones in all of science fiction and horror. He frequently creates works that are deliberately mind-boggling in their level of complexity and suspension of disbelief. During this time in his career, sexuality and the maturation of the human spirit were particularly fascinating to Cronenberg, and they are explored at length in his masterpiece Videodrome, a body horror movie. We find ourselves suddenly transported to a parallel universe with some key differences. It's hard to tell if we're in the not-too-distant future or imagining the present. The movie's story of humanity's psychic transformation at the hands of mass media requires an uncanny space created by this lack of detail about when this happens, and this is exactly what the movie needs. James Woods plays Max Wren, president of a Toronto, Ontario UHF television station that buys sensational shows to air. Despite the pornographic nature of the majority of their content, Wren claims it lacks a certain edge that would appeal to their target audience. Through his inside tech, Harlan, he is able to access tapes from the illegal satellite on the roof. There is a sadomasochistic television show featured on these tapes called Videodrome. Wren is desperate to get in touch with the program's creator in order to gain access to the creator's library, but the program's origins are mysterious. Can he? Getting the answer to this question and discovering the truth about that network will require you to watch the movie. When it was first introduced, Videodrome was revolutionary. However, modern technology has spread so widely that new viewers might not even be aware of the numerous revolutionary social and technological changes it brought about. It's hard to tell if we're in the future right now or if we're just dreaming. The movie, which tells the story of humanity's psychic transformation at the hands of mass media, depends on this lack of clarity regarding timing. Videodrome raises ethical questions that are as timely now as they were when it was first released, namely the impact of media like television and the prevalence of violent media. When combined, they stimulate our senses to the point where we transform.
C'est pas normal. Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Rien ne pousse nulle part. J'y peux rien.
Vous étiez où, hein?
Sometimes a movie that seems to have a very bright future ahead will somehow be passed over, go unnoticed, or for unknown reasons may have fallen through the cracks, even despite the accolades, awards, festival prizes, and critical praise. After movieing Lion of the Future in Mongolia and Altiplano in Peru, movie-maker duo Peter Brosens and Jessica Woodworth shot the third installment of their trilogy in the Belgian Ardennes where they live. The American author N.K. Jemisin's book of the same name is the basis for this movie. This book is significant for the following 5 reasons. First, it's a game changer in every sense of the word. 2, it has a unique form. 3, believable and intricate world building. The book is populated by formidable women and weak male protagonists. 5, there are many of the unknowns in it. When it is time to drive away winter from this tiny village of Belgian farmers, they all gather together for a ceremony that has its origins in a tradition that dates back to the beginning of time. A bonfire is constructed to stoke the flames of a straw figure representing the season that puts a halt to agricultural activity and strikes fear into the hearts of people. But there isn't a match or a torch that can start the big fire, and no amount of work will ever be enough to make it happen. In its absence, winter will continue for 1, 2, or even 3 additional seasons. As the level of deprivation in the village continues to rise, the trees begin to fall and the wildlife eventually becomes sterile and perishes. When this happens, men's souls wither away, and they revert to a primitive, vicious, and dark state. When their community is engulfed in an endless winter, villagers find their situation becoming more and more hopeless. However, this is not the end of the tale.
Le reste est soumis.
Allez, Fred.
Ciao.